Hello YouTube, it's Dave with Smize Flies. Back with it looks like number 19 video on the how-to series, which I'm going to keep doing. Today I'm tying up a Rainbow Warrior, which is fast becoming one of the best flies for trout that's ever been used. It's a very, very, very productive fly. And I wouldn't know anything about it because I've never fished with it. I just hear people talking about it, and I've spoken with other tyers about it, and they sell well. So, and any of the fishermen you talk to are, oh yeah, you got to have one of them in your box because they're just so good. They're so small. I'm guessing maybe they imitate like a midge, but either way the wind blows, you want to start with a red thread. I'm using Vivis, and I think I remember. I'm not sure if it's 10-aught. Yes, 10-aught Vivis in red. And you're going to want to take your thread back pretty far into the bend, because this fly is best done on a scud hook, which is a size 14 scud. Actually, this is a size 10 scud, I'm sorry. And we're coming back pretty far. So I'm tying this on a little bit of a bigger hook than what I normally would for video purposes, so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm sure this would still work. It seems to me, in my experience, the trout seem to like the smaller the fly, the more they like the fly itself. So anyhow, I came the whole way back up to the bead again. Snip your tag end out. In my case, I just go like this and push, because those scissors are, you hear me talk about them a lot. So anywho, one of the first things you want to do on this pattern is get a tail in it. And I looked at a few patterns just to make sure that I was doing things right, because I've never tied this. Yes, I have. I've tied this one time before, but I pretty much guessed based off of what I saw. So this time, there's no guessing games. This time, it's supposed to be pheasant tail, and you only need to use just a few fibers of it. So I'm probably going to grab anywhere between 4 and 6 fibers at the most. I'm going to strip them off the stem, which of course it brought a whole bunch of other stuff that I didn't want. So for the first time in a long time, I'm going to be snipping pheasant tail off the hank. Okay, so there we go. So you want this to be about as long as your shank of your hook, which is the top area there, which is kind of hard to judge because it curves, but that should be about right, perfectly right there. And I'm going to come back to about middle of the hook. I'm going to catch it with a pinch wrap, tie it down, and then you're just going to want to make wraps the whole way back. And again, well into the bend. And it seems if you hold on and squeeze your tail real tight until you're done wrapping it, it'll hold it that much tighter together instead of splaying out. Now you do want a little bit of a splay to this, so I'll stop maybe on my last couple wraps and just kind of hold my hand there lightly. That's where you just have to be able to wrap tightly, so I'll hold it like this with my finger and push down. Alright, I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to bring the thread the whole way back up front. And I'm trying to get pretty close. You don't have to be perfectly close wraps, but it certainly doesn't hurt to keep your thread even on the thread bed. Thread bed, thread base, whatever you may want to call it. So I'm going to take this up, and the reason why I'm doing it, and I left it in for 2 reasons, is I'm kind of going to use the pheasant tail to help secure the bead in place so it's not pulling backwards on you. I would normally do that with wire that I tie in for segmentation, but that's not happening with this fly, so you get it right to where you want it. And this stuff you can usually just rip right out just like that. And that bead's staying pretty good and still for me, so I'm happy with that. And I want to get nothing but a bunch of red thread, and I saw a little pheasant tail color sticking up through, so I'm going to do this. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get like the thick rainbow flexi floss, or what do they call this? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called like flexi floss. And this is in, obviously rainbow color. And they have this thin and thick. I prefer the thick. I'd say you cut about 3.5 inches of that off. Oops. And you tie it in. I'm going to leave it a little bit over the top of the bead. Well, you need to leave... Not really. I'm just going to... Yeah, because it's not going to matter. Because you're not going to be able to cut it close enough. And it's going to blend in with... You'll see coming down here pretty soon. I'll be able to show you everything instead of talking to you about it. I'm just going to do it. So there's that. And you kind of want to keep this up on top of the hook. So at this point, you can still finagle it to get it where you want it. But you got to be very careful because it'll spin too far. And then, it might cause you an issue. It's not really going to matter because you're wrapping it around the hook anyway. So I'm going to take this all the way back to where I stopped with my tail, which that's pretty much the same with any pattern you're tying. Sorry if I'm stuttering a little. I get a little nervous when I'm doing these videos because I'm still new at it, and you don't want to make any mistakes and do something wrong, so then you're screwing other people up, and you don't want to do that. I really worry about that a lot for you guys. I don't want to do misinformation. I don't want to make mistakes. Well, I make lots of mistakes, and I don't edit them out. I just let it go, just to show that no matter who you are, if you're a fly tyer, there's mistakes are going to happen. There's just no way around them. So I'm just trying to keep this as real as I can, because I don't want to make it look like I don't make mistakes, like I'm some professional. I'm a decent fly tyer, good fly tyer at best, but I really love the hobby, and that's what keeps me in it. So I'm going to wrap this all the way back up to where, I don't know, I'd say 1 to 2 beads back and stop. And I'm not sure what size bead this is. I'm not real good with the beads. I had a bead chart here, but I can't find it right this moment. It's bigger than a 3/32. They're the smallest. But what you can do is you can get your hook out, and you're probably going to want to tie this on like a 16 if you're going to be using it, which would require about this size bead. You can tell by looking. If you slide it on, you can tell it'll be uniform or it won't. So then you want to take the rainbow, it's not tinsel, but you might as well say it is, and wrap it forward. And I like to use, when I make that wrap, I like to go about 1/4 of the way over the last wrap, since I'm not going to be wrapping any segmentation. And as I've stated to you guys before, all flies have some sort of segmentation, or just about all. Like obviously if you're tying a minnow or a crab or something like that, they don't have segmentation. So you can't say all flies have it. And I just want to keep everything looking good. Take your time when you're wrapping this. Make sure you're wrapping it good and tight so you don't have any creases or any standing up. Or if you miss any, you don't want to do that. So I think I'm going to go one more wrap, since it really doesn't matter because you're going to be covering some of it up anyway, which I will show you here in a minute. And this is where it gets tough for me, because now I got to use my bobbin with my left hand, which I prefer to not do. There's that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up one time to try to wrap this up over. There's a reason for it. I'm going to go, come on now. I'm going to go clear over the top. And I've got way too much thread out. It keeps slipping out. It just screws me up. You want to keep your thread from the hook to the point of your bobbin. You really don't want much more than like 1 inch to 2 inches. You get better thread control that way. And when I first started tying, I used to have 6-7 inches out, and until Brian the flysmith said, "Hey man, why are you doing that?" And then I realized I was doing things wrong, and ever since I changed it, it's been a big deal. And see, now that I had that little bit of a problem, I'm going to have to unwrap that and do this again. Yeah, see, I'm going to have to unwrap the whole darn thing because it all came loose on me. So bear with me for a second, y'all. It'll get fixed, just like that. I just don't like that little piece sticking up right there. So, back to the wrapping again. I apologize, but bear with me. One thing you can tell when I'm making these mistakes, you can tell it's all authentic right here in front of you. Most people would edit that out and be like, well, I don't want people to see I screwed up. Well, I don't care if you see that because I know you're going to make mistakes. We all do. I'd like to meet one fly tire that doesn't run into making mistakes. Some days are better than the other. Some days you get the Murphy's Law, where anything that can go wrong will go wrong and does. And as you saw in my video yesterday, me doing that mouse fly, I was running into all kinds of troubles. And the funny thing is the first 3 I tied before that, I ran into no troubles. But I think it's my nerves about being on video that does that to me. And you'd think I'd be over it by now when I've done over 100 lives. But I'm not over it, obviously. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to catch that right there. And there's a reason for that, which you'll see here in a minute. Where this job's about already done. So you want to get to there. And you want to get a tannish sparkle dub if you have it. I don't really have the sparkle dub, but I do have a nice tannish color. I don't know which one I want to use, though. That's going to be the one.
So now let's eliminate patient zero. How did you get this? Well, yeah, that's my email badge. I don't even look at porn, so someone must have hacked me. But you were hacked? You don't watch porn?
Again, this dub is super fine dub, which is something that I choose to use because it makes an easier, better noodle. Some of those other dubs are just not quite your best friend, honestly. Well, mine anyway. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to build up a nice thorax. And it's okay to go a little bit thick with this one. And don't worry if the red thread shows through up here at the bead, because we're going to make a red bead head or a hot spot anyway. So once you get to a certain point, you want to take the tinsel, the flash, whatever it is, pull it up over, don't pull too tight, and then you want to tie it in right behind the bead, just like that, and that makes a nice little wing case. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a few more wraps. And this is what I was talking about earlier. When you go to cut this, if you don't get it as close as you want to, it doesn't matter because it's going to match right up with what you've made the wing case out of. So it's not a big deal. So now what you want to do is you want to build up a nice looking, I don't know, I would say a thick red thread base right there. Not a thread base, a tie-off point, and you want to make it nice and thick. So now this is a hot spot, which really helps. You know, it makes it easier for the fish to see that. So my thread just broke on me, which that happens a lot. I was putting too much pressure. That is not anything but user error. That's not Murphy's Law. That's Dave Smith dumbass law. So I'm going to pull up on that a little bit. I'm going to get in here. I'm going to get a dab of UV resin back here, right there. I'm going to let it sit for a couple seconds, and then I'm going to cure it, and that'll be as good as a whip finish anyway, because it's not going to come undone. Especially because when I'm done with this, I'm going to put more in there. And as you can see, that made it stay. It's done. It's tied off. It's always good to have the whip finish in there. Don't think that that's not a good thing to have, because it really is. But when you make a mistake and you don't want to go back and start all over again, it doesn't hurt to do what I just did. So, now that I got there, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put a real nice little dab of it right on the thread, and I'm going to turn the vice jaws around and just make sure I'm hitting only the thread for now. And I'll cure that again, and then I'm going to take it, I'm going to put a little bit of UV resin right on the wing case. That did not have to happen. I don't know how it ended up out there, but it did, so we're just going to take care of it.
I've seen a lot of phone puzzles, but nothing like what Clayton did. LinkedIn
Right there.
and my mom asked if we could help.
Boy, is that going to be a booger to cut.
Up for everything. We decided to get the cow.
But when you have a pair of fly smith scissors, you can cut anything. Anyhow, now, back to the wing case on top. Just a little bit of a
We just wanted to make sure that this was a special
dabaroni up there. And what that'll do is it'll make, it's going to make it shine even more. going through the water. The sun's going to hit it, and the UV resin is going to shine because it's like glass. And that's going to help you as well. And that's the end of that. That is the Rainbow Warrior, my friends. And I'm going to bring it out like I always do for you guys. And I will pick any unwanted fibers that didn't, or I will cut any unwanted fibers that I didn't want to be there that I missed earlier, that snuck to the bottom of my hook. And this pattern has been, it's gaining and keeps gaining popularity, but there it is. That, my friends, is the Rainbow Warrior. And you see how you can see the red underneath that rainbow on the body? It's just a really neat fly. And I'll pull it back here. You can probably see how well it shines up here at the wing case. So there you go. Thank you guys for being here. If you like what you see, like the video. And please, on the main page there where my name is, please just hit the subscriber button. It's free. It doesn't cost a thing. Thank you guys very much. God bless.